Hi everyone, hello, hope you are all well. Just gonna go and double check and make sure everything is going well. It's working, it's going into my group. Hope everyone's having a lovely evening. Welcome, it is Wednesday again. How quickly does the week fly? It is Work Wednesday Facebook Live, and today is all about 5 things that you must know before you teach abroad. And it's going to be useful for every expat teacher, but particularly the future expat teachers, those teachers who are planning to make the move from their home countries to come abroad and teach. So, guys, do say hi, give me some likes, let me know if you're watching. I'm going to apologize in advance. I do have a delivery coming around 9 o'clock. I'm hoping to be finished by then. But if I go off in the middle of it, you know why. But it shouldn't take the full 30 minutes. We'll aim for about 15 minutes or so. Again, like before, if you have any questions, please stick them in the comments section below. Okay, so at the moment, I'm actually currently rewriting my How to Be an Empowered Expat Teacher book, and I've done a lot of research about how expat teaching has changed in the last 20 years or so, and also the changes that have happened since COVID. So this is why this has been inspired by this, so the research that I've done there recently. So let's begin. Okay, so number one thing to really notice is that the number of international schools has increased massively. So if you look back into 20 years ago, there was only 2,500 international schools. Nowadays, there's about 11,500. But they say in 8 years, there'll be 16,500 international schools. So that's something just to be aware of. That's something really positive for us as expat teachers. The fact that international education is still prized. And even though obviously there have been setbacks and implications with COVID, and I know I've heard of schools closing around the world, a small number of schools closing around the world, and I know that unfortunately expat teachers, as well as other expats, have had salary cuts in order to cope with, reduced student numbers or reduced fees. It's still good to know that international education is still highly valued around the world, and therefore there are going to be lots of jobs in the future. Obviously, you can see in the 20 years there was a huge jump. It might slow down in the next few years, but countries, particularly in Asia, countries in like 20 years ago in Asia, like China, they didn't have international schools necessarily for local students. So their own local students weren't allowed to attend maybe international schools, but it's all changing. We've got China. We've also got Saudi Arabia with its Vision 2030. We'll talk about that later on. They're also hoping to have more schools that have English as the medium of education, or the medium English as the medium of instruction. So it's really good to know that there's going to be lots of jobs coming up over the next few years. Again, at any point, guys, if you've got any questions, please do stick them in the comments below. You might need to click on the eCam link to give it permission so I can see your name. Okay, so number 2. Traditionally, when expat teachers decide they want to move abroad, everybody automatically thinks of Dubai. Everyone thinks of the UAE, the Gulf region, because it was so popular for so long. I mean, if you look in 2009, the UAE had the highest number of international schools, with 391. Obviously, you've got places like Saudi, it's increasing, and Qatar as well. Like I said, at the Saudi Arabia Vision 2030, they want to have more schools that use English as a medium of instruction, which therefore probably will increase number of jobs for like English speaking Western expat teachers. And then if you look now, today though, there has been some changes. If you look in 2020, UAE has sort of doubled in those maybe 11 years to 680 schools, but China has really, really, really jumped. It's now got 960 schools in China. You also have India, Pakistan, Indonesia. So again, you don't always have to assume the Gulf. It's always great to have a plan A, B, C as well. So don't just be honing in the one place. I would try and look at every region. Cambodia and Vietnam, they're relatively new players in the expat teaching international school game. I went to Vietnam. I don't know if anyone here has been to Vietnam. Oh my goodness, I went there, well, obviously before COVID, but I went there last October, I think. And oh my goodness, honestly, it would be my contender if, when I leave Dubai, I would definitely rate Vietnam as an amazing place to work, especially Ho Chi Minh City. Oh, absolutely loved it. And I know there's great schools there, great packages, really nice lifestyle. So that again will be some to consider. Do consider other places as well, not just the um, traditional places. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. If I've got anyone listening in from UAE, you can see we've got our half term has been reinstated. There was talk, actually, that we're going to lose the half term because of the change in days in the calendar. We will have to make it the 5 days at the end, though, but it's still lovely to have the October half term for sure. Do let me know where you're watching from. If you are a future expat teacher, please say hi, stick your name in the comments, and let me know where you'd hope to move to. So again, that's the second thing. So number 3, the next thing that I recommend that you know before you move abroad is, again, it was happening before COVID, but it's probably, the demand has probably accelerated since COVID. So basically, in the world of expat teaching, you have lots of different schools, international schools, at different price points, different price points, excuse me. You've obviously got the lower tier, the mid tier, and the higher tier, or the premium, they sometimes say premium tier international school. Since there's been a lot of changes around the world, so even before, we'll say, COVID, in the Gulf particularly, the Western expat packages are not the same. They're not as lucrative, perhaps. Some aren't as lucrative as they once were. Times are changing. We've got the economy. You've got more expats. So in the past, many Western, I'm going to say non-teachers, like Western professionals, like engineers or architects, managers, in oil and gas, they would have been on extremely generous packages. And that would have included fees for their children's schooling. So their school fees, international school fees, will be paid by their job. In the last few years, these packages have been cut. The benefits have been slashed, and therefore, Western expats do not have the same amount of money, the same, the high benefit that they once had. So therefore, they are demanding more mid-price international schools as a result. So it's very rare that they'll have a package that will fully cover a premium price international school. At the same time, you also have a lot increase of non-Western professional expats that are coming in, particularly into the Gulf, and that are also demanding international education at maybe at a better value price. So as a result of this, and also with COVID, and particularly in, we'll say, the for-profit schools, FP is like for-profit, with COVID, there was issues where parents were refusing to pay the fees or only paying partial fees because they didn't feel they should pay full fees when their kids were distance learning, because obviously, the students weren't using the facilities of the school, etc. And as a result, many for-profits did cut their fees to help parents out at that difficult time, which probably, started the conversation about the price of international schools. So due to all these factors, there is going to be, this sector is set to expand massively. And that was according to ISE Research. I watched a webinar of theirs over the summer. And if you get a chance to check them out, do. ISE Research. They are actually very trustworthy source of data. They basically look at trends, etc., and they inform international schools, so they can, predict the trends that are going to happen, or, they're quite good. They analyze and study international schools and different trends around the world. So, of course, if a school is charging mid-price fees, therefore, most likely it's going to have implication on packages for teachers, because if they're not charging extremely high fees, particularly if they're for-profit, they still want to make their profit. A for-profit school, a majority of international schools around the world are for-profit. Some are standalone for-profit, some belong to a chain. For example, GEMS, we've got like Harrow, we've got Nord Anglia, lots of different chains, and they obviously are a business model, so they want to return a profit. So therefore, they still want to get The business still wants to get the return on investment, which means if the school are charging lower mid-price fees, yet they still want to maintain the same profit, there's going to be something there that has to give. And in some cases, it may be the package that teachers are offered. So that's something, again, to bear in mind. When you are applying to a school, or when you get, if you're researching a school abroad, or if you've got an interview for a school abroad, if you're deliberating taking an offer from a school abroad, if they've offered you a job, these are the factors maybe you can possibly look at. Obviously, if you've been offered a job, you'll be sent the contract, so you'll see what the salary is. But again, you could still go on the website and see what kind of fees they charge, and that might help you gauge. Not always, but sometimes it can be a bit of a helpful indicator to indicate, if what fees they charge, therefore maybe what, the demographic maybe of student, and also then maybe it might reflect the type of package they offer to their teachers. Something really important just to bear in mind. These are little kind of things to consider when you're teaching abroad. Now, guys, feel free, before I go on to number 4, please feel free, if you want to tag any friend who would find this helpful, please, send me some likes. Please give me some, let me know where you're watching from. It would be great to hear from you. I'm just going to see if there's any comments. I'm actually not sure if I can see if the comments are... Yeah, I don't think I have any comments so far. Sorry, because I'm using a third-party service to record. Sometimes the comments don't come up until the end, but I don't think I have any. Yeah, okay. Super. Now, this is something that's quite interesting, and I know there's been some talk this week on the group about this. Some people member asked, is it possible to find a school that offers the same salary to a teacher that was hired abroad, as a teacher that was hired abroad to a teacher that was hired in country? And I have to say, I think there's maybe 2 different questions being asked there. So my response was, I have colleagues in my school in Dubai who were hired in country. Like, they obviously were at a different school in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or wherever, and now they work in my school. And they get the exact same benefits that I do, the same salary, etc. The same contract. They may perhaps have not received, the flight, because if you were coming from the UK or Ireland or the US or South Africa, you would have a flight paid for you to come over in August. They may have not received that because they were already living in the country. But I haven't asked them. I haven't clarified that with them. But that could be something. But I think maybe another question was, I think what the original poster was asking was, if you're in country, I think they were asking a question about the international versus local contracts, which is something different. You always need, if you're single, or if you're coming out and you're the main breadwinner, you always need an international contract. That ensures that you get your medical insurance, you get the full salary, you get rental allowance or an accommodation. It means that you get, all your benefits, and that's, what you'd expect. A local contract, usually you will never be offered a local contract if you're coming in from abroad, if you're the main breadwinner, or if you're even in country. The only time you'd be offered a local contract and could accept it would be if your spouse is the main breadwinner and you're on their visa. So that often happens in cases with teachers, if their spouse, I'm going to talk about the Gulf because obviously people are married in order to get the spousal visa support, that their spouse or partner might be either another teacher or they might be, a different profession, and it's assumed that the spouse's package will provide enough rent allowance or will provide accommodation suitable for both because they're a married couple. The benefits will change slightly. It's very rare that a married couple will come out and each get a single, like a single allowance each, or 2 international contracts. It can happen, but generally there's usually an obligation in the contract to say if your spouse is, what they're doing, and if you're married, and then they might have to come under your sponsorship or something. So there was 2 different questions being asked there. So if that's not clear, do let me know. But just to clarify that, you should always go for an international contract as an expat teacher. Now, I have to say, lately, particularly with COVID, when schools in the Gulf were going back to school, and also when I saw in Asia as well, different places in Asia, particularly like in Vietnam where the borders were closed, or China where the borders were closed, or there was restricted travel, and the same in the Gulf as well, in UAE and Qatar, etc. A lot of schools were looking for teachers already resident in the country. They weren't accepting candidates from abroad. That obviously was due to maybe restrictions and COVID issues. However, I do think it has become, when I was in Qatar, that would almost never happen. I know that was due to maybe Qatar's labour laws at that time, but now it's quite common. And I know quite a lot of schools, particularly in UAE, in Dubai, they do look to hire in country. So that, again, if you're not hearing back from a school abroad, that could be one reason why. If your CV and cover letter are outstanding, if you've done your homework, done your research, and you're an amazing, you have done an amazing effort, done an amazing job at applying, it could be that they're only looking to hire candidates in country. So that can also happen, particularly unexpected last minute job losses. I know that happened in UAE, for example. Schools went back and then they didn't realize how their numbers are going to be bigger, so therefore they need to employ other teachers, and they tend to hire it in country. It's so much quicker. You don't have to worry about necessarily flying them in or going through that interview process. It's also quite good in the sense that if you hire someone in country, it's more similar to what would happen in the UK or the US, I imagine, where you would invite a teacher in for an interview and you can observe them teaching. That obviously happens if the teacher is already in country, you can observe them teaching. You can see how they mingle with their potential future colleagues. You can see if they're a good fit for the school. So it's probably a more thorough interview than you would have over Skype or Zoom. Another reason why I feel, again, this is my own kind of opinion and sort of my observations from looking at the group and, talking to expat teachers and, being here the whole time. You also find that particularly in like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, more so in Dubai where you've got the KHDA, the DSIB, the Dubai School Inspection Bureau, they have inspections every single year. So many schools in Dubai would like to have a teacher who's familiar with that system, who's familiar with the DSIB, the KHDA, the standards, who has been through the inspection process, knows what to do, knows what boxes to tick, etc. So that I know is probably a plus point, hiring somebody who's already in the country who's familiar with the system. And I say cheaper, and I put a question mark because I'm not 100% sure, but if they do not have to pay, for example, that flight to fly them into the country, that could maybe save them money. Perhaps in some cases, a school might have put you up in accommodation temporarily until you got your visa, and then you could go and find your own accommodation. Obviously, if you're already in the country, they may not have to do that because you're just kind of transferring visas from your old one to your new one. So again, it may work a bit cheaper. That's something just to consider as well. Okay, and then the last reason, the last thing that you should definitely know before you come out, just to be aware, in the UAE, so obviously majority of us coming out are qualified teachers. Pretty much every international school abroad, requires a fully qualified teacher, whether it be PGCE, PGDE, that's from Ireland, the HDIP, which is the older teacher qualification in Ireland, whether it might be, I think it's CAPS from South Africa, BEd if you're primary. What system am I missing? Oh yeah, US teacher license. So generally they always require a qualification for sure. Some exceptions to that would be the Ministry of Education, MOE schools, the government or public schools. In the UAE, sometimes they accept teachers that have a degree in their subject or maybe experience, not necessarily a full teaching qualification. In some cases for English in MOE public government schools, they accept someone with a CELTA, which is like a certificate of teaching English as English to adults. Also, sometimes, some cases in Shuwaifat, sometimes they used to, I'm not sure if the case now, but in the past they used to recruit teachers who had a degree in the subject, but then they would train them up in their own system when they moved out to the different Shuwaifat schools around the world. But for 95%, you need to be fully qualified. Now, despite this, UAE have launched a new teacher licensing system. And it is to make sure that every teacher is sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. So regardless if you're qualified in Ireland or the UK or Spain or the Lebanon, even though you have your own qualification from your home country, they want to sort of have one uniform that everyone has gone through. So please be aware that is compulsory starting from this year. So when you move here, you will have to do this and you'll have to pay for it. Now, if you're qualified in some if your teaching qualification is from some Western curriculums, I think like Ireland, UK, and US, I'm not sure about South Africa, you'll only have to do certain modules, not all of them. However, if you qualified as a teacher in a different curriculum outside the ones that are listed, that tend to be the Western ones, you will have to do more modules. You'll have more to study, and there are like different assignments or different things to do. Just please bear that in mind. You'll have to do a version of it. It's called the TLS, I think, the Teacher Licensing System, and you'll have to pay for it regardless of your teaching qualification. And that it's been it was in a pilot scheme for a while, and then it kind of quietened down there. But now there's been a push for it again. So just to be aware that that's something just to know about in case you didn't know about it before. So it's good to know just these things so you make a fully informed decision. Now, just to keep you up to date, every Wednesday I'll be doing some Facebook Lives. And over the next few months, I'll be doing them on how to choose your ideal location, understand the different schools abroad and implications for you. I talked a little bit about the for-profits today. What to do if you're an NQT, have a family, or maybe you got a special circumstance, why you're not hearing back from schools abroad, and more. So there's the kind of topics I'll be covering over the next few weeks and months. Please, if you have anything you'd like me to cover, stick it in the comment section below so I can cover it for you on a Wednesday. Okay, guys, any questions? Sorry, I'm going to try and see anything there that was new, anything that was surprising that you had not realized. I mean, some of you might be seasoned expat teachers and you might have known all this before, but if not, do let me know. Sorry, I'm going to try and make this. Sorry, there we go. I know there's a bit of a lag, so let me just give it a minute. Yeah, not really got any questions. Anyway, I'll be on for the next few minutes after. My parcel still hasn't arrived. That's great. I've done it before the parcel arrived, before you hear the ding dong. Yeah. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Yeah. There are 5 things I think you definitely should know before you teach abroad. It's so important. I can't emphasize enough the importance of research and the importance of being fully informed and being very clear in your mind about the pros and cons of different countries, the pros and cons of different curriculums, the pros and cons of different maybe student demographics, the pros and cons of, for-profit, not-for-profit schools. So many things to consider. And I'd always say to someone, my last piece of advice would be there's always, it's not just Dubai. There are other places in the world. Dubai, for sure, is a great place, but do always have, I know Dubai is most popular. Everyone wants to move to Dubai, but there is a big world out there. Have your plan A, Dubai, but also have your plan B, C, etc. just to make sure that you make the best decision for you. Okay, guys, have a lovely evening. And see you next week, next Wednesday. Bye-bye.